What's your name, little fella?
Where's the rest of your family? Oh, that's a rotten shame, that's what it is. Taking a nice little fellow like you away from your mother.
I like making things captive in this place. We'll fool them, that's what we'll do. Tell you what I'll do, I'm gonna let you go. And don't thank me. Now, I can't go with you. I wish I could. There you are. Goodbye.
Rose Hobart has a series of surprising and discontinuous encounters under an exotic moon, bleeding a cool blue light over the jungle, somewhere east of Borneo. She is an explorer, a flapper, a caged bird, a femme fatale. The film forsakes story and pursues a new context for seeing, journeying into the actress's reactions and expressions. In an intercutting of moods, she performs delight and terror. During the first screening of Joseph Cornell's Rose Hobart at the Julien Levy Gallery in New York City in 1936, the Surrealist painter Salvador Dalí forcefully knocked over the film projector in a rage, accusing Cornell of having stolen the idea for the film from Dalí's own subconscious. The experience was reportedly traumatic for Cornell, but it also baptized Rose Hobart as a work of American Surrealism. It arose from the same impulses that Dalí had pursued alongside Louis Buñuel with their film Un Chien Andalou, that is, to deepen the subconscious properties of images by abandoning or floating context. For Buñuel and Dalí, this meant complicating their scenario with a deceptive chronology and using the hard cut as a way to transform the relations of present to past and relations among characters, their desires, their histories, the deceptive passages and brilliant corners of memory. For Joseph Cornell, achieving this meant stripping away, shedding story altogether in favor of appearances, and at that, the borrowed appearances of a Hollywood movie. It was this that enraged Dalí, and that he laid claim over, the unrealized and unannounced idea of making a film from a pre-existing film. Such a process would allow the maker to explore borrowed subtexts that were not inherently their own, creating a new encounter with the world of the film, much as the stray threads of the day return in dreams. Biographical portraits of Cornell have often dwelled on the intimacy of his filmmaking, that the films were made without an audience in mind beyond his brother, and thus, like the boxed assemblages for which he is best known, they are essentially home movies carved from the afterlife of commercial objects. Cornell made Rose Hobart from a print of the adventure film East of Borneo, motivated by his preoccupation with the actress Rose Hobart. His resulting film seems less a declaration of obsessive desire or even a gesture of courtly love than it is a reflection on appearances and, like Cornell's boxed collages that deal with matinee idols, an attempt at recognizing, in the universality of the movie star, a thread of personal resonance. Like the Surrealist filmmakers before him, Cornell shapes the material for a uniquely oneiric impact, one that both invites and disavows interpretation. The dreamlike experience of Rose Hobart was not machined for any audience but his family, and thus, from personal resonance emerges a fount of universal and eternal symbolic properties. The film's subtle mechanics invite the most scrutiny, as, through sustained shots and hard cuts and visible splices, it becomes an undulating spell focused around the eyes of Rose Hobart, eyes that direct the viewer through Cornell's heterodox montage. Like the trance films of Maya Deren and Kenneth Anger that would soon follow it in defining an American experimental cinema, Rose Hobart is a nocturne. Cornell tells us so in two ways: by the appearance of the moon, which, seen eclipsed, suggests the projection beam itself, and by an emulation of moonlight, effected by holding a blue pane of glass up to the beam of the projection lens, effectively eclipsing it in turn. In a later iteration, Cornell would replace the blue pane of glass with a red one. Was this a transit from a cool nocturne to a blaze of pure eroticism, or a literal demonstration of regarding the past through rose-colored glasses? Rose Hobart is an evolution of the compilation film. The compilation film was with cinema from its first decade onward, from early experiments by Frederick S. Armitage and Edwin S. Porter, through to the mature and disciplined form it assumed in the 1920s with the films of S. for Shub. Shub's 1927 film The Fall of the Romanov Dynasty repurposed aristocratic propaganda to the service of a revolutionary message. Such subversion was, for Shub, the art of the compilation film, its ability to rend image from root meaning, to reformulate meaning through context, such that a movie could achieve dialectical engagement with its viewers. Shub's pioneering work is recognized as an early example of the necessity of film archives. In making her films, Shub had to create an archive through which to organize materials. For the compilation filmmaker, the archive is an ephemeral and intimate space, even in the service of idealism. Cornell's engagement with the archive is a major departure from the philosophies of Shub, for whom declarative messaging was a central goal. His archive was the junk shop, a place where commingling objects become entangled, discovered by chance. In the junk shop he found objects of universal symbolism and bent them into something of open, ambiguous meaning. a process that was personal and intuitive for both the maker and the viewer. In Cornell's boxes, this is laid plain. While Shub was seeking a particularity of meaning, Cornell was commanding his materials to reveal themselves. His idiosyncratic archive, cobbled together from warehouse sales, resellers, and junk shops, was a site of psychic provocation, navigated by instinct, enhanced by experience, and by devotion to the oneiric singularity of cinema and of the second-hand object. The junk shop, the hoard, the highly organized and esoteric personal library, all are informal storehouses of knowledge, potentially intimate, from which an object or an image, once alienated from its root context, made newly intimate, newly personal, or even newly anonymous, may still be haunted by the psychic imprint of its history, known or unknown. Cornell's experiments with filmmaking were informal and prolific, and the outcome, navigated by film historians, art critics, and archivists for half a century since his death, is a scrap heap of fragments, attributions, collaborations, and imprecise and speculative dating. In the 1930s and 1940s, Cornell's filmmaking involved materials that included industrial, travel, and ethnographic documentaries, fantasy scenes of children and for children, carnivalesque vaudeville acts, and the mysterious visions of science films. Some of these films were completed in the period. Book stalls in which the booksellers in the streets of Paris become a portal to exotic experiences. And By Night with Torch and Spear, a collision of fragmented title cards and imagery drawn from anthropological and industrial documentaries. Other films were completed years later, with the assistance of collage filmmaker Lawrence Jordan, who worked as Cornell's assistant in the mid-1960s, finishing several films by making them printable. Among these are the children's trilogy, Cotillion, The Midnight Party, and The Children's Party. This trilogy features frequently overlapping imagery, and, along with Rose Hobart, it represents Cornell's major pre-war work. An animated lesson in recognizing constellations gives way to an intercutting of children and vaudeville stage acts, ending first in a playful rebellion, then ending again with the fury of Zeus. Throughout, there are plays on expectation and withheld contexts, from the horizontal reversal of title cards that render them illegible, to the strange insertion of imagery from scientific films, little eruptions in the on-screen exchange between the spectacles of the circus and the spectatorship of children. As with Rose Hobart, the trilogy strongly suggests the atmosphere of a dream, married here to a naive, enchanted, adolescent slumber, where the staging and illustration of myth is met by night with trust and joy, a vision of unreserved fascination. In Cornell's collage films, authorship is entirely subconscious. The analytical cues of these films are indebted to chance and to the nocturne they stir in the audience. There are signs of a playful awareness in them, in the direction of eye lines, in subversions to the grammar of film, from horizontal and vertical legibility to the substitution of reverse shots, in the inference created by the splice that joins disparate subjects, that transcend barriers of distance, spatial and temporal. One of these signs comes in Cotillion, when images of the cherubic faces of children, intercut with the circus, infer their reactions, or lack thereof, to the iron mandibles and perfect balance of the performers. This is an application of Lev Kuleshov's montage theory, be it conscious or incidental, to cinema's common river of dreams, that storehouse of consensus memory that began to accumulate when the train entered the station at La Ciotat in 1895. The splice bears its own ambiguity, simultaneously sequencing images and declaring them discontinuous, the dissonance of a dream. The splice retains another quality inherited from the Surrealists, still present in Rose Hobart's corridors of sightlines, that the borrowed dream can become an expression of the artist's own will.